and operating systems, infrastructure monitoring, right? You onboard all this kind of data. But very often, as we just spoke here, right, SAP is out of that monitoring, and is best case monitored just in a SAP-focused, isolated way. What we establish, or what we offer customers in order to onboard SAP to the CM platform or cybersecurity platform, there is a middleware that can be used. We have, this is software that sits between SAP systems and the CM, right? And will grab all kinds of security, audit, compliance relevant data from an SAP system, from various data sources. We have about, I don't know, more than 20 data sources that we pull from an SAP system. The benefit, I think, is quite clear that can be achieved. First of all, in the cybersecurity platform, you give SAP a far greater context from the monitoring capabilities point of view, of course. Right? So if I were to ask an SAP expert and say, do you know, or just an SAP department, right? Do you know when actually data is being downloaded and it will leave the organization through a private email account, or is being put on a USB stick and taken away, taken home? SAP team will just say, no, we don't have any visibility on what is going on in the network, on the notebooks, etc. Of course, right? At the same time, the other way around, the IT security expert will also say, well, we probably can set up an alert, right, that will come up if someone is sending data to a private email account, but it's probably just a picture or probably just some private notes or whatsoever that's being sent home, so it's a lot of false positive probably. So here in the cybersecurity platform, you can actually cross-correlate things, right? So you can just create a rule that detects, of course, the download of SAP data and detects the same when data is being put on a USB stick or anything else. And then an alert can be triggered, right, which is at the point, of course, right? So this provides you far greater context for the monitoring. Then, of course, it is not just a rule-based approach, as I just stated, right? It is UEBA that adds an advanced capabilities, advanced analytics, right? An SAP administrator, for example, that suddenly reaches out or executes a financial transaction or checks a lot of times or accesses a lot of personal sensitive data, not his own, but HR data, right? Data to sensitive data, access to sensitive data and so forth, right? Can be spotted also with the UEBA component, of course, and this adds, of course, a lot of value to the monitoring, because not each and every potential malicious or suspicious activity can be just created in a rule, right? Because you would create hundreds of rules for SAP systems, right, where departments are allowed to only do this, but then are allowed to do that. So UEBA spots the anomaly, and this helps, of course, a lot. And then SOAR is, of course, the next thing. Imagine you have an incident, and just a simple, can be simple like that. There are certain SAP standard accounts, like Substar, as they are called. The policy or security policy and recommendation is, don't use that account, lock the account, take away privileges, do not use it, right? So if such an account is being used, what you can do to mitigate or respond to that situation is, in the CM, it pops up as an alert, Substar is being used, and then immediately a playbook could be triggered and isolate, mitigate, quarantine this application, this server, this notebook, whatsoever uses it, right, and cuts the connection to an SAP system. And this is just the first stage. We are, of course, working now on SOAR playbooks that also can reach back into the SAP system to correct a system setting, to lock, again, an account, right? Of course, you can lock an Active Directory account that is often, of course, also connected to an SAP system for the login. But in any case, that's of course, the more sophisticated playbooks that we're creating. I hope I spoke about everything on this slide, was what is important. So here, the important message is, like, you're able to give SAP a far greater context, and actually an SAP specialist and a cybersecurity specialist can join forces and work on the goal, which is protection and monitoring of SAP system, right? And then, of course, using the cybersecurity technology that is best in class, of course, right? Also for the aspect of SAP, or for the monitoring of SAP. Here's just an overview on, and of course this is, we don't need to read, of course, all this, but here are 4 main pillars. You can call it use cases, or let's say ways, or how our customers are using our solution. So the first topic is, of course, audit compliance and security, right? Which is, of course, a major aspect of this, where we look at all kinds of system settings, authorizations, and then user behavior. Not UIBA, but like execution of critical transactions, access to critical sensitive data, download of things, debugging, etc. So a lot of rules are there to monitor this kind of SAP activity here in terms of security and audit compliance. Then we're looking at business integrity monitoring, and this is quite important as we're looking at segregation of duties, conflicts in an SAP system from SAP basis point of view and also from business point of view. So to avoid and to report on existing SOD conflicts on business processes, right? Not only on SOD conflicts, but also from another perspective, we're looking at the business data. Right? So whenever we then detect an anomaly in business processes in SAP, purchase to pay, order to cash, right? A classic example is the multiple usage of a one-time vendor, right, in SAP. So whenever this is happening in a system, it will be detected as we're looking at the business data of SAP, not just the authorizations from authorizations point of view. Then I was speaking before about personal sensitive information that is stored in an SAP system. And there is a lot, of course, in SAP. Now SAP, and this is the third column, PII, access monitoring, personal identifiable information monitoring. The thing is, SAP has a really powerful log source that's called the read access log. But the hurdle that organizations have is you need to configure to a high extent, right? First, the read access log in order to make SAP systems log access to personal information. That is not out of the box available. What we have done is we worked multiple man-months on a configuration, on a customizing for SAP systems that can be imported as a transport, and that could be put on SAP machines, and it will make SAP systems log access to whatever personal identifiable information, personal sensitive information, like salary information in an SAP system. And then, of course, with the help of our technology, we pull the log, the read access log, we bring it to the SIEM, and we monitor, and we have the rules and the dashboards for the visualization and alerting. And then the fourth pillar is a off-security topic. It's called, we call it IT service intelligence. That is more or less availability monitoring, KPI monitoring of SAP systems. So usage of CPU, RAM, right? But then also about batch jobs in SAP system, how if there are overnight, failed jobs, etc. If there are short dumps like error logs in an SAP system, all that sort of information is pulled out of the system, and then, of course, the idea is to detect an issue of an SAP system from an operations point of view as soon as possible, right? And much sooner, much faster than today a solution manager, for example, can do, right? And we've seen that issue with a customer where a productive machine went down within 45 minutes and solution manager monitoring could not help. I was speaking before about the importance of SaaS solutions. Now I'd like to show you a customer case in Germany that we have worked before. So they actually, what happened in 2022 is they're using a SIEM for monitoring SAP, but then they realized that they have a critical issue in their success factors solution. So there was and it was out of their monitoring, right? Because there is no interface in SAP. I'll get to that. So their solution was showing a green light, right? But they missed, of course, an important piece, which is now the new technologies in SAP. So what happened? And if you're using success factors, you probably face the same issue, because it was not just one tenant in success factors that had this issue. There was a mass change, and apparently it was done by SAP themselves. There was a mass change of user authorizations in all success factors accounts. And then, of course, it took a while until one loyal employee just rang the HR department and say, you know what, I'm having a lot of other menus in my success factors system, right? And is it on purpose that I can access the salary information of my manager, right? I guess not, right? And then okay, but at that time they already had a GDPR failure case, right, in the organization. Now, a painful experience, of course. So what they did then, as a next step, is, of course, they reached out to SAP. They wanted to ask SAP, like, how is this possible? Do you know what happened? Can we have some logs for the monitoring? They opened up a security measure to remediate and correct this immediately, right, within the next 3 to 6 months. Asked SAP, thought it was easy. They could just send the logs and they can onboard it into their monitoring, but it's not. SAP is not able to push security logs from success factors to single tenants, and SAP does not even provide an API to get to such logs. What they then did, they reached out to us. They said, Logpoint, you know, we're not using your CM platform, but you are a cybersecurity expert, and you are an expert in SAP security. Can you help us, please? Right? And this is where we started a collaboration project with a large insurance company based or headquartered in Munich. You probably all know, right? And now what is built based on Logpoint technology, we help them to kind of create an API for success factors. We did that through the BTP, through the business technology platform. So it's kind of a trick bypassing, generating logs, extracting the logs, and kind of, creating an automated monitoring for success factors. All you can do today is you can go into success factors, you can create a report, and you can download it, and this is a CSV file that you then can put in a CM system for monitoring or for analysis, or analyze it in Excel, right? So this is the capabilities today. So this is no automated monitoring, but we achieved kind of an automation in generating reports, retrieving or downloading the data, pushing it into our CM, and we have it in our monitoring. Here it is not, as the session was announced to be like response to threats in SAP, here it was not even about response, but it was first to regain control, to regain transparency in what is going on, right, in the application. And it shows that actually SaaS solutions open up a new threat vector, right? And this is important. Now, this is what it looks like, and I mean, you can in any case not see the details on this dashboard right now, but actually I blurred the slides because it's customer data, but I have in the tech bar, I have now a proper dashboard I can show you with Logpoint data from success factors. So this is about log-on data, where we then the customer asked for, initially for 2 dashboards, which was about log-on data, just to get the transparency, who is logging in to success factors, from where in the world, from what, and they are called divisions, departments, and locations, right? As it's called in success factors. And then, of course, unusual, like a heat map to visualize unusual working hours, something like that. But what about the real problem? It was the mass change of data, right? This is the dashboard for the change audit, like to monitor all kinds of changes to accounts, authorizations, role assignments in success factors. And here just a couple of use cases. So in such widgets is just displayed whenever there have been role changes or role assignment or group assignments, right? So these categories are visualized. Then you have like a timeline that where you see, of course, the amount of changes over a period of time, right? And such peaks that you can't just see here, right? Such a peak is, of course, worth an alert. So if there are a lot of changes in a very short period of time, such a widget search that displays the data can, of course, be transferred in an alert in Logpoint, as you probably just know. And some of the use cases here, changes beyond working hours, right? Then critical role assignments, of course, a temporary role assignment, then role self-assignment, of course, and all kinds of details, and the dashboard is longer than that, all kinds of details about the changes, whatever roles have been changed, what about users have been assigned this and that role. So all that transparency is given to the customer now with the help of our products. And in addition to logon data and change audit, we also have now these 4 log sources, and I'm reading it for you. So it's adding read audit information, read audit log of success factors, and also data exfiltration logs. So any access to personal sensitive information, that is also, of course, in success factors, right? And then, of course, if someone is downloading information from out of success factors. So these are the log sources that we have today as a start. A slide with regards to UEBA. We have released UEBA 1.5 in September, I guess, last year. And there will be UEBA 1.6 to come in end of March, if I'm not wrong. There was a soft launch of SAP UEBA or UEBA for SAP in September. Now we officially launch it with a new version of UEBA. And actually we're working together with a customer in Sweden on this integration. And to, of course, train and work on, and we have received the customer's data, right, to create such a product or to create UEBA for SAP. So this is not just in our garage or labs, right, but with real customer data, what we work on. And I was touching on SOAR a bit. So what is here, this slide just explains what is capable today and what will come soon. So SOAR is, of course, the playbooks that we have that can be used. Standard playbooks of Logpoint can now be used. I was given an example that a certain account, you can cut connections when certain standard users of SAP are being used in order to respond to this. Then, of course, investigations can be done in an automated way. So if you have an incident, right, then you probably just want to gather some data that you have in your CM system already that's kind of given a bit of a context to this incident, right? So playbooks can be used to just give some background information, and then of course we have integrations in ticketing systems like ServiceNow or something like that, where you can send all that information as an attachment, create a ticket, inform someone, right, that in that case an SAP specialist that need to work on the remediation, of course, right? And then of course what's possible in any case, and this is not necessarily SOAR, incidents can be, of course, turned into, they can send out notifications to any stakeholders in the SAP department, right? And this is how it fits all together. What we, of course, are working on is more sophisticated SOAR playbooks for SAP. Reach back to, or out back to the SAP system, as I said, potentially correct a system setting, a profile parameter or whatsoever that needs to be changed back to a certain value, or like close the system for changes, right? And here the important aspect is SAP has that much powerful API that is open to use, right? That you can create an account, you can assign privileges to an account, right? But you can also take it away and lock an account, and this is what we're going to do. And of course, embed Active Directory and other information, or you could reach out to an SAP system, gather some more information about a user that has been used that is suspicious, right? So when was it created? Who does it belong to? Who is the real person behind this, right? Something like that can be pulled out of SAP, and this is the more like the next gen SOAR playbooks that we're gonna introduce. Yeah, this almost last slide is about the current portfolio and the roadmap for 2023. Actually, the design team did change a bit of my color code here, and I did not put a legend here, but like this kind of rose color is it rose? Yes. Nice, great stuff. So this color code here, right, is still to come. The rest is available. So what we have today is like we cover the classic traditional world, like all kind of NetWeaver application servers, ABAP, Java, SAP HANA database, but also S4 HANA systems, of course. These systems may run, and this is where they run, right, on our customers. It is on-prem, it is hyperscaler, it is private cloud, of course, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, wherever. Also, we have a customer that is, or not only one, that they are using the old cloud of SAP, the HANA Enterprise Cloud, as it's called, where we have signed agreements with SAP that they deploy our add-on on this cloud-like deployment, right? So our connector software, I have not touched on that. We have an SAP add-on that is SAP certified, but we also have a remote connector that is just purely accessing SAP systems remotely using API. And this is beneficial, of course, for those customers that have, there are these customers that have hundreds of SIDs and want to monitor hundreds of SIDs, SAP systems logs, right? The remote connector is just put on one central machine, right? And then only a remote account needs to be on the single SAP systems. And this is, of course, an ease in deployment. Okay, all good. So this is, of course, very beneficial when it comes to roll out such a remote connector. And this technology is also being used to onboard BTP, and the SaaS solutions, right? So for SuccessFactors, it was a combination of BTP, a BTP app, and our remote connector technology to digest the data and to put it into the SIEM. So there's a tick box on SuccessFactors, right? BTP, we have a prototype ready, but no visualization and no, I mean, it's just simply not onboarded to our remote connector, but that will come soon. And then we're touching on Hybris next, Hybris Sales Cloud products. Ariba will be next, Fieldglass, Concur, those are the SaaS solutions of SAP that we target. And this is not a multi-year roadmap, so this is probably a bit too ambitious, but we thrive to solve this in 2023 to onboard all this technology. So what's available already is UEBA for SAP, SOAR for SAP or SAP partially, I would say, right? There's more to come, but there is a starting point for SOAR. And then, of course, all that will land and will be offered, right, in our Logpoints converged SaaS SIEM. And then also here, it will be the remote connector, basically, or mainly, right, that will be also available as a service thing that can remotely reach out to SAP systems. Just a, oops, I was expecting some more slides. Maybe I can manually start these. Maybe not. They were hidden slides and they removed it. Okay. Well then, I'm happy to show you more dashboards live on my laptop computer, of course. And this was just supposed to have a couple of them as a teaser and to invite you to the tech bar. So I'm happy to take any conversation, discussion, of course, after the session, or just I'll be here, of course, also tomorrow. Happy to have a further conversation with you, and thank you very much for your intention. And yeah, I'll invite you to the tech bar. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thanks, Christoph. Appreciate how difficult that was with all the.
Yeah, maybe I played around too much in the beginning with the slides, right? And then I caused, but it's back again. So
the curse of the
super.
Preparation and a new location, right? I'm just going to throw open to questions in the room, as we've got a luxury of a little bit of time here. So if you've got anything you're thinking of, or no matter how simple or complex, then maybe we can do it here today, or take it to the tech bar. But let's get them on the table. You know, something for me, and we talk to customers fairly often together, don't we? But I know that you have a massive view over the entire company in terms of our sales engagements when it comes to SAP. So I wanted to ask you, in your mind, what's the biggest barrier to these organizations that are so heavily invested in SAP? They've got their crown jewels in there, their customer data, their product data in there. What's their barrier to get started truly on this kind of security compliance journey?
A barrier is, of course, that such a technology combines two teams. Right? It's an SAP security team plus the cybersecurity teams. Those specialists need to work together, and this is probably not the awareness in an organization that this needs to happen as a first step in reorganizing teams a bit, and probably we're also ask or engage customers, right, to how do you say, to break down these IT silos, right? And these organizations or departments need to work together. So that's, of course, a first barrier, where SAP is just still covered with SAP-centric, SAP-focused technology, and SAP GUI, right? SAP guys would probably do not want to look into CM systems or cybersecurity platforms, but it is very intuitive, a web front end in Logpoint, right? And you have a new use case with just a couple of mouse clicks. But yeah, I would say that you know, these teams do not talk to each other, and as long as this is not happening and there is no decision to follow this strategy, it will not happen.
Good. Okay, so I guess the SAP basis manager, or even the SAP security person, if such a person exists within an organization, probably has no greater awareness of the security context within the organization, right? So
yeah, we also see these organizations where it's really done nothing about SAP security. Yeah.
Interesting.
There is a question.
Probably my question is two parts.
Yes.
One part is a little bit related to how many dashboards you actually have created for SAP security stuff. I mean, how many different kind of security reports you have created, especially for this one. How many different indicators are coming out from what you have done with SAP, then with other companies maybe are just simply getting out from syslog or any kind of, trying to build up like process monitoring. And the second part of my question is, let's say that organizations have database activity monitoring and data classification tools and DLP tools and etc. So they can actually have filters for the information protection, that it's and access management and access control, different kind of tools and etc. How this is helping and making, let's say, something better and more visible than, let's say, the other approach.
What was the first question? Sorry.
The first question was around how much dashboard.
How much dashboard? Yeah.
Relevant kind of data can we get out of that, I guess.
So, well, thank you for all these questions. Yeah, I don't have a number for that, but it's a lot, of course, what we've created, and we use in Logpoint so-called search templates. That means they have like one search template consists of several dashboards, right? And then you have the filter options. At least we have dashboards for all these, and not just one search template for all these for all these technologies, or the four values or use cases that we've seen before, right? For here we have it. No. Sorry, for security and compliance, and then of course for business integrity monitoring, for PII access monitoring, IT service intelligence, and then security compliance. There are several aspects. We have a set of search template dashboards for the SAP router, for web dispatcher, for ICM, for access from external, right? Yeah. All sorts of things, and then of course some very let's say basic dashboards where you just filter for a user and get a report on the activity. Yeah, but we can have a look. I mean, it's multiple dashboards in search templates, right, that we have, and of course there are about 60, 70-ish rules available out of the box, and so this is the kind of monitoring you can look into the dashboards, of course, and follow suspicious things, right? But you also, like every widget in Logpoint, as you know, can be turned into an alert rule also. So it can be easily extended to hundreds of alert rules because we have hundreds of widgets, right? But only started with like a 60, 70-ish alert rules. Your second question was about HANA, not the database. Yes.
And DLP and data classification tools, they also kind of get a lot of information about the access, about the usage, about who is sending out
yes.
kind of information.
Yeah.
Let me answer the first part and then I'll hand back to you.
Yeah.
So all of those technologies, this is not a replacement for those, right? Yeah. What I would say is it goes back almost to the classical use cases. You have all this, you know, security onions, defensive depth, whatever you want to call it, whatever philosophies, you know, ZTNA, that can all be applied to SAP environments, right? But they're all products. They all have a job, and you know, maybe they integrate with AD, maybe they integrate with another system, but they don't integrate with all of the systems. So they can't cover all of the use cases. So access is good, but what happens if somebody is doing something they're allowed to do? They're just doing it a lot. Right? How do you correlate that potential other things happening in your environment? How do we know, like the CFO happens to be accessing a lot of data, a lot of employee data, a lot of financial data. That's fine, as a CFO, he can do what he wants. But is he doing that from his iPad on a beach in Morocco? And is he doing it at 3 o'clock in the morning? And did we see a brute force attempt on one of his accounts? Did we see that he's getting a lot of phishing emails recently? All things we've caught and stopped and seen. But those things together in isolation potentially happen every single day in isolation, but all those things happening in a nexus of a couple of 2-3 hours or over the course of the day, that context is really important because now we know our CFO is being targeted. Maybe we need to understand why and where and who, and that's worthy of further investigation. And that's what this technology allows you to do, is to correlate those events, have the wider security context, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it's no longer point solutions, right? It's like all in one, and you have the full context for the monitoring. Let me answer your question also with regards to an example from a customer recently, where they had issues in getting HANA logs, HANA audit logs from SAP's cloud, or in this case it was still the HANA Enterprise Cloud world, right? With the help of our remote connector, we could grab this information, we could grab the HANA audit logs, and more important for the customer was even also to query the database, and in particular we've created value for the HANA database of SAP, right? So SAP systems still exist on Oracle, DB2, etc., but HANA was for us the focus, of course, right? So what we query the HANA database for are HANA database parameters and settings, like availability of audit policies, etc., and we do this on a regular basis in an automatic way. So we not only look at HANA audit logs, but also query the database for this kind of settings And of course, it's about users that can be used, right? Users that system user in the HANA database that must not be used, if that user is available, right? And if that user is, of course, taking action, etc. And then, yeah, like the audit policies that need to be in place, right? In order to create audit log will be checked on a regular basis.
Just to cap that off with one final comment, and then we'll go to one last question I think we have time for. And it goes back to what Christoph said earlier about the biggest challenges, right? We've got two teams of people. Sometimes they talk, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have people embedded in each other's teams. Often they don't. So seeing a traditional DLP or access management solution, who owns that? Who manages that? Typically security, right? With input from the SAP team of what control should be in place. And then that's gone and forgotten. The SAP team walks up back over here and does their day job. But the security guy over here has absolutely no clue what data is in that database, how it's being used, who should access it, once he's given that policy one time. So he may be seeing things, or she may be seeing things, but these guys need to know about it. So what this provides is a system they can both use. They can both have a common lexicon, a common language, and a common communication pathway, and it gives them that platform to be able to work together without perhaps a natural conflict, or the who does what, or stealing from each other's fiefdoms a little bit, right? It's a shared operating ground for the common good.
Possibility to double click and immediately see what kind of information it is.
Well, potentially, yeah. Potentially, right? So,
yeah.
But does the SAP guy do it? Does the security guy do it? Do they both need to do it? Who does what, when, and where? It allows them to work out what that operating model is. Yeah. I guarantee they don't have that today. Yeah. Sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think actually it's to elaborate on that. In our organization, we normally not give access to Logpoint on CM for people outside the security team, because there's so many information in it that can be used against the people working in our organization. But in this particular case with the SAP, I think we have like 30 or 40 people working in the SAP department. And would you recommend giving them an insight or a user on that particular dashboard?
For sure, yeah. I think that is essential.
Maybe then train certain people in the department in security ways, or?
I mean, it's basically on, yes, of course, I mean, there must be this kind of exchange of knowledge, right? That is best case, but I mean, these dashboards that we have created make immediately sense to SAP guys, right? Because it's SAP terminology and everything. And this can be shaped, right, in Logpoint with authorizations based on the repositories, right? They can be given authorizations, if I'm not wrong, right? So that you can separate the data and give access to certain SAP data, but not other IT security data, right? And then this interchange will happen. And of course, it is different GUI. It's no longer an SAP GUI, right? But if you can, I can just show you how easy it is to create just another use case, right? Just another query where you want to spot, for example, someone. Imagine you have single sign-on, then you want to spot who is logging in with username and password, right? And this is just one small line, and then you have a chart count by user, and then you press enter, and you have the list and the dashboard, right? So this is basically Of course, this kind of capability and information needs to be given to the SAP team as well. Yeah.
To take that a step further, we've had use cases in many customers actually where they've opened up the SIM tooling to HR, P&C as we call it, people and culture, human resources, whatever it is for your organisation, because actually maybe they need to know that there's been activity on a particular user account. Maybe that person's left, maybe that person's on sabbatical, maternity leave. Shouldn't be logging into systems, but actually there's a business issue there as well. So obviously IT need to know about it and maybe have a look at what's going on with that account. Also HR need to know that potentially they have maybe a social engineering problem, maybe there's a workforce-based problem. We've seen many use cases, we're going too deep into that, around having to open up to organisations that you wouldn't necessarily think of it. With SAP, we extend that because there's HR data in there, right? So they
Exactly.
definitely
Yes.
could need a window into that, you know, in more advanced use cases. So particular success factors things and stuff as well. So it opens up a little bit more of a world for collaboration within our customers, we feel. I think that the technology is probably ahead of the thinking in terms of the customer base. We can achieve more with the technology than they kind of realise they can achieve, because they don't, in very large companies, it's very hard to kind of find those people that want to collaborate sometimes, particularly if those departments sit in different countries, speak different languages. But the possibilities are there for sure.
And not just probably not only the SAP data, right, but also other data is important to SAP experts, but they haven't a view on that, right? So operating system logs. Just recently we had this one use cases where the CISO like hammered on the desk and said, end of discussion, we're gonna have this tool implemented, right? You're gonna need so much more visibility on things that are surrounding your SAP systems you currently do not see, right? And that's why it's also important to extend the SAP, give SAP people, of course, also data they haven't seen before, right? So
I think maybe normally we would send them like alarms or reports or something.
yes,
Like if something happens, they would get the information.
yeah,
But here we're talking about them having the information at hand at all times.
of course, yeah,
And
It might be a read
And-
only view. There might
Yeah.
be a
yeah,
better
exactly.
mechanism,
So
you can still set all your controls.
yeah. The short answer, for sure, like giving them access, yeah, that's super important.
but perhaps in a way where they couldn't change.
Of course.
So we are at the top of the hour. If that's piqued your interest at all, as Christoph said, he will be at the tech bar with his magic laptop. We can show you way more than we have here today. You've got about 10 or 15 minutes to make your way to the next rooms. Please indulge in the beverages outside. Thank you very much. One more round of applause for Christoph.
Thank you very much. Super, great questions. Thank you.
Well done, mate.
Well done.